Hi everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel Dr. Srinivas Medical Concepts and my FB page Dr. Srinivas Concepts. This is Dr. Srinivas, neurologist from Andhra Pradesh, India. I am also the medical author of the book Focused Neurology. Today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic, the neuroradiology, CT scan, MRI and clinical correlation. The neuroradiology. CT scan, computerized tomography scan. CT scan actually measures the degree of X-ray attenuation by tissue and is quantified by Hounsfield units. So basically X-rays are generated and we see the X-ray attenuation of tissues which are quantified by HU. CT scan. So the attenuation of X-rays by tissue either is black at the one end of the spectrum or white at the other end of the spectrum. We call it as hypodense or hyperdense. So black is hypodense and white is hyperdense. What are all the structures which appear black and gray and then at the other end white or hyperdense? The structures which are black or hyperdense are air. Air gives a black color or a hypodensity to the CT scan, followed by water or cerebrospinal fluid. Then we have soft tissue which is gray. Then at the other end we have blood, the hemorrhage, which appears hyperdense or white, and then the bone, that is the calcium. So hemorrhage or blood and calcium and bone appear hyperdense white. So CT scan is the investigation of choice for hemorrhage, especially head injury when we need to take CT scan fast, or subarachnoid hemorrhage where the blood in the brain is visualized better in CT than even MRI. So for blood hemorrhage, CT scan is the investigation of choice. For bony abnormalities, fracture where there is calcium, CT scan is the investigation of choice. Right. We need to understand a very important concept, the blood-brain barrier and contrast enhancement. Generally, when we take CT scan in a normal individual and then give IV contrast like iodine containing contrast agent, there's not much difference between a CT scan without contrast and a CT scan with contrast, except for perhaps a venous sinus enhancement. Generally, there's not much difference because blood-brain barrier is a tight junction which will not allow anything in the brain anything in the blood to appear easily in the brain. The blood-brain barrier. We have the tight endothelial junctions. So the blood or anything in the blood like contrast cannot enter the brain because of the tight endothelial junctions. So in normal people, without contrast and with contrast, there is not much change. But if in situation where there is breakdown of blood-brain barrier, the disruption of the blood-brain barrier, when the endothelial cells of the vessel give away, anything in the blood enters into the brain easily, which includes the contrast. Disorders like tumors, infections like neurocysticercosis or tuberculoma will disrupt the blood-brain barrier. So the endothelial junctions of the vessels get disrupted. So anything in the blood will enter into the brain easily. So we take advantage of this situation, and when we give contrast which is in the blood, which generally does not enter the brain, but because of the disruption of the blood-brain barrier due to diseases like tumors and neurocysticercosis or tuberculoma, enters into the brain. So now after contrast, the lesions appear enhanced. So when we compare the normal CT scan and after giving IV contrast, we have contrast enhancing lesions if there is a disruption of the blood-brain barrier due to tumors or infective processes. So we need to understand this blood-brain barrier and contrast enhancement concept. So in CT scan, for contrast enhancement, we give iodine containing contrast agent, but this can cause a lot of allergies, drug reactions, and in severe cases can even cause contrast nephropathy. Whereas in MRI, the contrast we use is a paramagnetic substance, gadolinium, which causes less reactions and less of contrast nephropathy. And therefore MRI contrast is always safer than CT contrast. As I said, in a normal individual, when we give contrast and then see a repeat CT scan after contrast, there is not much change except perhaps for the venous sinus. But in condition where the blood-brain barrier is disrupted in abnormal individuals who harbor tumors or neurocysticercosis or tuberculoma, when we take CT scan and after giving contrast, when we take a repeat CT scan, these lesions appear enhanced. So contrast enhancement suggests there's a breakdown of the blood-brain barrier and indirectly suggests that there are lesions like tumors or neurocysticercosis or tuberculoma. So this is a very important concept, contrast enhancement and blood-brain barrier. So CT scan, what are the uses of CT scan? The general uses are it is cheap as compared to MRI, it is cheap. And the second big advantage is that it can be done very fast, especially in persons who have head injury. When we need to see whether there's extradural hematoma and immediately call a neurosurgeon, we need to take scan fast. And CT scan is an excellent investigation of choice because one, it is fast, and second, CT scan is the best investigations for hemorrhage or blood. So advantage is that it is cheap and then it can be done faster. So the two conditions where the CT scan has got the best use, the use where it can be used the most are one, the disorders which have got blood in it like hemorrhage, or the disorders where the bone is involved like fractures. So hemorrhage, as I've been repeating, I want to reiterate, for hemorrhage or blood, CT scan is the investigation of choice. In fact, it is better than even MRI. Two conditions where CT scan is really helpful are one, the subarachnoid hemorrhage, where the blood seeps into the subarachnoid space because of the rupture of the aneurysm. So you can see the blood in the cisterns and the ventricles. So it can be picked up immediately by CT scan head. So for subarachnoid hemorrhage, CT scan is the investigation of choice. Likewise, head injury, it can be done very fast. Person is having head injury, every minute counts, so immediately we rush him and get a CT scan head done. Head injury generally produces two types of hematoma. One, an extradural hematoma. Second, subdural hematoma. Extradural hematoma is usually because of the middle meningeal artery rupture. As the name suggests, it is above the dura membrane. Dura membrane is a tough structure. It will not allow anything to get underneath the dura. So the hemorrhage is localized. It is convex shaped. It is localized, wedge adjacent to the bone. Whereas subdural hematoma is because of the tear of the bridging veins. It is underneath the dura membrane. So it can be seen nicely seeping underneath the dura, right from even the frontal lobe to the occipital lobe. It is concave shaped. Subdural hematoma is because of the rupture of the bridging veins. So It can occur especially in old people who have even forgotten the trivial injury, but at a later point of time they may develop dementia. So chronic subdural hematoma is one of the treatable causes of dementia. Extradural hematoma is because of the arterial rupture. So we should because the blood is really gushing out, we have to immediately call neurosurgeon and take the hematoma out, and persons will become better. So for subarachnoid hemorrhage or head injury, for ruling out extradural hematoma or subdural hematoma, CT scan head is the investigation of choice. The blood, as we were discussing hypodense and hyperdense, the blood when it is acute, it appears hyperdense or white. But with the passage of the time, it becomes dark or hypodense. So acute hemorrhage appears white on CT scan, whereas chronic hemorrhage becomes dark or hypodense. Example, subdural hematoma. If the subdural hematoma is seen initially, it appears white. Subacute state, it is of mixed color, white and black. But on a chronic phase, it becomes dark or hypodense. So when it is hypodense or dark, it is a chronic hemorrhage. For stroke, generally we prefer doing CT angiography. So when we give contrast and see the CT vessels, the vessels clearly are seen in CT angiography. It will be helpful for localizing the vessel or for any intervention. So CT angiography is very useful, especially for stroke patients. The other use of CT scan head, as I said, is for bony abnormalities. Because calcium is picked up very well on CT scan, it appears white or hyperdense. So any head injury with bony fractures, multiple injuries for bony fragments, CT scan head is the investigation of choice. The disadvantage of CT scan is that the posterior fossa, brainstem or the cerebellum are not well visualized because of the bony artifacts. Yeah, this is all about CT scan. Now let's see MRI. MRI, the images of MRI result from the varying intensity of the radio wave signals emerging from the tissue in which the hydrogen ions have been excited by RF pulse. So in MRI, we give RF pulse, radio frequency pulse, and it goes and bombards the tissues which contains hydrogen ions, and the emanating energy is recorded by MRI. So this is magnetic resonance imaging where we use radio frequency pulse, but in CT scan we use X-rays. So CT scan is unsafe in pregnancy, MRI is relatively safer in pregnancy. Yeah, now let's talk about the various sequences used in MRI and the advantage of these various sequences. We have T1 sequence, T2 sequence, proton weighted sequence, FLAIR, DWI and ADC. The T1 weighted sequence is very good in defining the anatomy of the central nervous system, the brain structures. The CSF appears dark or black in color. So when we see an MRI sequence where the CSF appears dark, it is T1. So T1 weighted sequence is very useful for defining the anatomy of the brain structures, CNS structures. The T2 weighted sequence is the next sequence which we use. How do we identify T2 sequence? It's just the opposite of T1. The CSF in T2 sequence appears white, hyperintense. The CSF in T1 appears dark, hypointense. The T2 sequence is very useful for defining the abnormalities. The T1 is very useful for defining the anatomy of the CNS. The T2 sequence is very useful to define the abnormalities, the various disease process which we see in CNS. The third is proton weighted sequence. The sequence which we use very commonly and is found very useful in CNS lesions are FLAIR. fluid attenuated inversion recovery sequence, fluid attenuated inversion recovery imaging. Here what we do is that we use the T2 weighted sequence, the T2 sequence, but then here we suppress or we invert the signal of CSF. So CSF, instead of appearing bright, in FLAIR CSF appears dark. Why do we do this? As I said, FLAIR is a wonderful investigation, wonderful MRI sequence for most of the CNS lesions, especially white matter abnormalities, multiple sclerosis. We see multiple sclerosis and white matter abnormalities in the white matter adjacent to the ventricles. So if the ventricles are also, the CSF in the ventricles are also hyper intense, that is bright or white, and white matter lesions because of the disease are also bright and white, we cannot differentiate, they appear merged, and therefore we voluntarily suppress the CSF signal, cause an inversion of the CSF signal and make it appear dark, so that when there is a white matter lesion, the white color or the bright color appears brighter in comparison with the adjacent dark CSF. So this is a very good technique followed to appreciate most of the CNS lesions, especially white matter abnormalities like multiple sclerosis. So I repeat, FLAIR is like T2, but CSF, instead of appearing bright, it appears dark. Very interesting and very useful investigation is DWI, diffusion weighted imaging. Here, this is based on the principle of diffusion-perfusion mismatch. Especially this is very useful in picking up hyperacute infarct. So when we need to thrombolize a person with infarct, we have a time window period, 3 extended to 4.5 hours. But as the time passes on, the number of neurons are dying, more and more number of neurons are dying. So we cannot wait till say 3.5, okay, still we have time, 3.5 hours, 3 hours or 4 hours. The earlier we thrombolize, the better it is. So we have to pick up the lesion at the earliest. So here diffusion weighted imaging helps. The diffusion perfusion mismatch. The brain gets perfused by vessels, but then some tissues are already dead because of the cessation of the blood supply. But surrounding tissue, though there is a decreased blood supply, still they are viable. They are not yet dead. They may be ischemic, but they are not infarcted. This is known as ischemic penumbra. So there's a perfusion diffusion mismatch. Though there is a perfusion deficit in the entirety, the central core is dead, the diffusion, but surrounding core is still viable. So there's a mismatch between the perfusion and the diffusion. So this is picked up very well by MRI DWI, diffusion weighted imaging. It appears bright, hyper intense. Within minutes of ischemia we can pick it up. So very useful, especially when we consider thrombolysis. But then sometimes we may get confused whether it is an artifact or a bright signal because of hyperacute infarct. So we can confirm it by doing ADC, apparent diffusion coefficient images. This is just the opposite of DWI. In DWI, acute infarct appears bright, but in ADC, the acute infarct appears dark. So we can confirm it whether it is really hyperacute infarct or it's an artifact. So hyperacute infarct, the investigation of choice is MRI, especially DWI. For hemorrhage, the investigation of choice is CT. Very important concept. Right. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of MRI brain? The advantages of MRI brain is that the posterior fossa, brainstem and cerebellum can be picked up very well by MRI. Unlike CT scan, because of the bony artifacts, we will not be able to visualize the brainstem better. It is sensitive and better clarity than CT head. So if a neurologist or a clinician is suspecting a CNS lesion, it is always better to go for MRI brain than CT. Repeating doing a CT scan, then not being sure of what the lesion is and then going for MRI, it is better to go for MRI directly. But one place where CT scan scores or MRI is, as I said, blood hemorrhage or bone fracture. Third, the arteries and the veins can be visualized better by MRI, MR angiogram and MR venogram. For the arteries, the flowing blood itself acts as a contrast. So MR angiogram is very good because it is non-invasive and therefore there are not going to be risks. But it is slightly inferior as compared to CT angiogram where the clarity is better. But then CT angiogram, because we give a drug, a dye, it can have side effects. So if the side effects, there are less side effects, but then there's a good clarity, but not as good as compared to the CT angiogram. So to visualize arteries, we go for MR angiogram, especially when we do not want to take any risk. For any cortical vein thrombosis, or for that matter any venous pathology, we can do MR venogram, cortical vein thrombosis. The disadvantages are that it is costly, and second, it takes a lot of time to perform. For example, a person comes with head injury, you don't have time. So for that, and that too, and hemorrhage appears better on CT than compared to MRI. So we prefer CT. But when we need to really accurately analyze the disease process on which the treatment depends, and if time is not a constraint, we have to go for MRI. MRI takes a lot of time, but then it is better. The clarity is better with MRI as compared to CT. Another disadvantage of MRI is that if the person has got pacemakers or implants, metal implants, we cannot perform MRI because this is based on magnets. The two important concepts we need to understand for MRI is that CT scan, hemorrhage in CT scan is very easy. It appears bright and white in color, hyperdense. But when we take MRI, a person having hemorrhage, because of the changes in the hemoglobin, initially we have oxyhemoglobin and then deoxyhemoglobin and then methemoglobin, the T1, T2 sequences keep changing according to the age of the bleed. So when it is hyperacute, it is because of oxyhemoglobin. So in T1 it appears dark and T2 it appears bright. That is in the hyperacute state. But in a subacute state, the oxyhemoglobin gets converted into deoxyhemoglobin. So on T1 it is dark, on T2 it is dark. On a chronic stage, the deoxyhemoglobin gets converted into methemoglobin, and therefore now on T1 and T2 it is bright. So as the hemorrhage ages, the T1 and T2 sequence, the intensities also change. Hyperacute, T1 is dark, T2 is bright. T1 is hypointense, T2 is hyperintense because of oxyhemoglobin. Subacute phase, because of deoxyhemoglobin, the T1 and T2 both are dark or hypointense. Chronic stage, because of methemoglobin, the T1 and T2 both are bright or hyperintense. So very important. Hemorrhage according to the age of the blood, with the passage of the time, the intensity, the signal intensity changes in T1 and T2. The second important concept is that hyperacute infarct, ischemia, you want to thrombolize the person immediately because every minute count, many neurons are dying each minute. So you have to rush in, do the scan fast, establish the infarct and thrombolize the patient. For that, the sequence of choice is MRI diffusion weighted imaging, where it appears bright, hyper intense. When we have doubt, we can confirm it with ADC, apparent diffusion coefficient, which is opposite of MRI DWI, it appears dark. So summary, so what are the advantages and disadvantages of CT and MRI? CT, it is cheap and fast. MRI, it is costly and slow, time taking. CT it is less sensitive, especially the posterior fossa. MRI most sensitive, especially and better clarity, especially the posterior fossa structures like brainstem and cerebellum. But hemorrhage, that is blood, whether it's extradural hematoma or subdural hematoma because of head injury or subarachnoid hemorrhage, CT scan is better. Blood is visualized better in CT than MRI. So MRI is not as sensitive as CT scan when it comes for the investigation and diagnosis of hemorrhage or blood products. The bony abnormalities, again the fracture or any bony abnormalities, because of calcium it is picked up better on CT scan than MRI. So CT scan scores over MRI both for bony abnormalities and blood. The infarct, especially the posterior fossa, is not well visualized with CT scan. In fact, sometimes it takes 24 to 48 hours for the CT scan to pick up infarct, whereas MRI can pick up ischemia within minutes, the DWI sequence. So for infarct, MRI is the investigation of choice. And CT scan uses X-rays, so it is unsafe in pregnancy, whereas MRI uses RF pulse, so it is relatively safer in pregnancy. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of MRI and CT scan. So the clinician should use the appropriate investigation in the appropriate circumstance and then go ahead. For head injury, subdural hematoma, extradural hematoma or subarachnoid hemorrhage, CT scan is the investigation of choice. For hyperacute infarct or white matter abnormalities or for better clarity, especially for the posterior fossa, MRI is the investigation of choice. Of course, we have to consider social factors like cost also. So I really enjoyed giving this lecture. I hope you have also enjoyed listening to my lecture. If you have any suggestions or comments, kindly post on to my YouTube channel. But please like and subscribe my YouTube channel, Dr. Srinivas Medical Concepts, and my FB page, Dr. Srinivas Concepts. Thank you. Bye.